The U.S. quietly removes COVID vaccine guidance for pregnant women and healthy kids. President Trump spends 2 full hours on the phone with Vladimir Putin, and King Charles give a speech in Canada that practically screams, "Don't annex us," because there's talk about making Canada America's 51st state. Welcome to Nellie Miranda. So this week, the U.S. Secretary of Health, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., quietly removed COVID vaccinations from the CDC's routine immunization schedule for pregnant women and healthy kids. The very people they told us were the most vulnerable.
Hi, everybody. I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS Secretary, and I'm here today with NIH Director Dr. Jay Bhattacharya and FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary. I couldn't be more pleased to announce that as of today, the COVID vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women has been removed from the CDC recommended immunization schedule. Last year, the Biden administration urged healthy children to get yet another COVID shot despite the lack of any clinical data to support the repeat booster strategy in children.
Remember when disagreeing with mandates got you labeled as a science denier, an anti-vaxxer, a grandma killer? So what changed? Was it the science, the virus, the polling? So here's the kicker. Kennedy didn't even wait for the CDC's advisory panel's scheduled June review. He just skipped it, and I'm so glad he did, because this move aligns with the FDA's quiet decision to restrict vaccine approvals to only seniors and the immunocompromised.
Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie praised Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s move to remove the COVID-19 shot from the vaccine recommendation schedule for healthy children and pregnant women. Taking to X, Massie posted, quote, "This is a great first step. Millions of children will now be spared the known and unknown side effects of the COVID shots. CDC and FDA have been using your tax dollars to be liability-free, science-ignoring, fact-free marketing agents for vaccine manufacturers."
The Health and Human Services Director made the announcement Tuesday with the NIH Chief Jay Bhattacharya and FDA Commissioner Marty Makary in tow, saying, let's take a look.
Last year, the Biden administration urged healthy children to get yet another COVID shot despite the lack of any clinical data to support the repeat booster strategy in children.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention normally decides who should get the shots, but it currently has no director. So while critics of the CDC and pharmaceutical industry were very pleased about the news, some of RFK Jr.'s opponents assert that he was breaking a promise he made during his confirmation hearings, that he would not take away someone's vaccine.
Well, I am, as you can probably guess, thrilled by this news. This is great and perfectly consistent with the science, which is that their otherwise healthy children do not need the COVID vaccine. You can get it if you want, but it's not a recommended thing. I saw a lot of people screaming about this online, saying, "Oh no, anti-science stuff is taking over." They probably don't know that this is consistent with what many European countries do. Nordic countries, Finland, Sweden, and others similarly stopped recommending the COVID vaccine for otherwise healthy young people. They don't need it. You can still get it. It's not banned. This actually has to do, the vaccine schedule recommendation thing has to do with what is covered under liability. So if you had an adverse reaction, could you sue the vaccine manufacturer if it's on the schedule? This is my understanding. You can't, basically. So this is, I think even some people on the left should want more, not that I'm claiming the vaccines are unsafe or something, but in the case of an adverse reaction, they certainly can be unsafe in some circumstances. Should you be able to get some accountability for the vaccine manufacturer, that can only happen if they're not on the schedule. And again, this is just for otherwise healthy children, pregnant women, perfectly consistent with the science. So what's the big deal? Why are people shrieking on social media?
This is part of a much bigger shift, not necessarily about health, but about the optics and liability. It's about controlling the fallout from 3 years of safe and effective slogans that just didn't age well. And you know what? Good, because let public trust be earned again, because blind faith and failed experts, that is not science. That's a cult, and I'm so glad that this step is being taken. But while we're at it, I hope they look into the ridiculous vaccine schedule for children. But while RFK was cleaning up the CDC's mess, President Trump just had a 2-hour phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin about Ukraine and the growing chaos from Putin's endless drones and missile attacks.
New York Post cover calling out the, quote, war of words between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Tensions are rising after Russia launched its largest attacks of the entire 3-year war this weekend. Here's the president on Sunday.
I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all.
A few hours later, the president posted that Putin has gone absolutely crazy, exclamation point. The Kremlin responded with, this is a very crucial moment, which is associated with, of course, the emotional overload and with emotional reactions. Just last Monday, President Trump and Putin of Russia held a 2-hour phone call on a potential ceasefire. Here's White House Ukraine envoy, retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg.
He's done more in 120 days than the previous administration did in 1,200 days. I think he just needs to keep at it. It's frustrating, I know that. But the only guy that can do this is President Trump. You know, negotiations are never easy, but there's nowhere this war is going to end through violence, through killing of soldiers on either side.
Right.
It's going to come down to negotiation.
President Trump also signaled he's absolutely considering new sanctions against Russia. The New York Post editorial board headline, new sanctions can shock crazy Putin to his senses.
He even said, quote, what Vladimir Putin doesn't realize is that if it weren't for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia, and I mean really bad. He's playing with fire. Now, let me ask you something. Does that sound like a Putin puppet to you? Because for years, the media told us that Trump and Putin were besties. But here we are, Trump sounding tougher on Russia than most of NATO.
In focus now, Republican Congressman Brian Mast of the great state of Florida, chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Great to see you. Always thank you for your service as well. Look, Congressman, we are at a point now where President Trump seems to be running out of patience with Putin. And that means money taken away from the Russian people. Will that work?
I think it's a big part of it. I think Putin is negotiating this, not even negotiating it, looking for his terms at the table.
Yeah.
And he reads this as, if he can continue to take life and if he can continue to take land and kilometers away from Ukraine, then that puts him in a stronger position to get all of the terms that he wants. And I don't think that he looks at anything other than that, doesn't see the value of life. And so I think President Trump justly characterizes him as crazy. If you have no value in human life, then you are a crazy person. Does he see the loss of resources in terms of 10% or greater of his economy just going to military spending, the extreme high inflation going on in Russia right now, the inability to provide for their people, and the sanctions going on, not just against Russia, but against those that are going to buy from Russia? Yeah, that's going to continue to cripple their economy. But at a certain point, he has to either, take value for human life, or everybody's going to recognize that he is the war criminal that we have been saying that he is. And I would just make one other point on this. Even if Putin is in a strong position because he can continue to take life and take land, he's getting himself into a position, I think, that the world never takes him or Russia back.
I don't think he's here to play nice. It appears to me that he's here to end the war and get results. Now let's talk about King Charles in Canada. Yesterday, on May 27th, King Charles gave a speech from the throne in Canada's Senate chamber. And yes, it was a direct response to pressure from President Trump, who had recently said, somewhat jokingly but somewhat serious, that the U.S. might annex Canada as a 51st state. He also wrote on his Truth Social, quote, I told Canada, which very much wants to be part of our fabulous Golden Dome system, that it will cost $61 billion if they remain a separate but unequal nation, but it will cost them $0 if they become our cherished 51st state. They are considering the offer, end quote. But in King Charles' speech, he emphasized Canada's sovereignty, its alliance, its military, and even its deep commitment to liberty.
This is my 20th visit to Canada, spread over the course of more than half a century, and my first as sovereign. As I've said before, every time I come to Canada, a little more of Canada seeps into my bloodstream and from there straight to my heart. It has been nearly 70 years since the sovereign first opened Parliament. In the time since, Canada has dramatically changed, repatriating its constitution, achieving full independence, and witnessing immense growth. Canada has embraced its British, French, and Indigenous roots and become a bold, ambitious, innovative country that is bilingual, truly multicultural, and committed to reconciliation. La langue française et la culture québécoise sont au cœur de l'identité canadienne. Elles définissent le pays que les Canadiens, les Canadiennes et moi aimons tant. Le Canada est un pays où l'on respecte et célèbre les langues officielles et les langues autochtones. Today, Canada faces another critical moment. Democracy, pluralism, the rule of law, self-determination, and freedom are values which Canadians hold dear, and ones which the government is determined to protect. As the anthem reminds us, the true North is indeed strong and free.
So King Charles is drawing a line. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Would y'all like to see Canada become the 51st state? When you take all these stories together, COVID guidance quietly changing, Trump taking charge of diplomacy, Canada trying to assert independence, you start to see the pattern. The establishment is scared. The narrative is unraveling. The media is losing its grip. And whether you like Trump or not, it's clear he changes the global calculus. So what do you think? Was Kennedy right to strip down COVID guidance? Can Trump finally broker a peace deal with Russia? And should Canada just stop pretending that they don't want to be America's cooler cousins up north? Let me know in the comments. And if you got any value from this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.